Out of all the videos that I have made, I continue to get a recurring comment or question over and over again, and that's, how did you convince your church to actually invest the money in the technology or whatever stuff that you're talking about? So in this video, I'm going to go over the 5 things that I always do and have in mind when I'm trying to convince my church to spend money on any type of technology, especially the ones that they don't understand. So let's go. Hey folks, AJ the CEO here. If this is your first time stopping by the channel, thanks for stopping by. And on this channel, we focus on tips, training, strategies, reviews, and builds to help modernize your media ministry. So if you're new here, consider subscribing. So the very first thing that I always focus on, now for y'all that don't know, I'm a preacher's kid. I've been in church my whole life. My dad was a pastor for 30 some odd years. So I've been to church meetings. I've heard and dealt with trustees, argumentative and very opinionated church members, stubborn choir members, the whole gamut. So the very first thing, anytime I try and bring any type of thought of purchasing some type of new technology, is I thoroughly research the cost. And when I think about cost, I'm not just thinking about how much does it cost to actually buy it from a store or order it from online. I'm sitting back thinking, what is the continued pricing of maintaining it, of repairing it? Is there a monthly, yearly, recurring cost? Also, I sit back and set the sky as the limit. I have 3 different types of tiers that I look for. I look for, if money wasn't an object, what would it be? What am I gonna, and then I look for the middle ground of where can I get my needs as well as some of my wants, but maybe not as many. And then I do a budget pricing of exactly what is the bare minimum that we can get by with to handle what I'm envisioning, what this technology is gonna bring to my church. And that's number 1, the cost. And again, you have to think of, I'm not argumentative and trying to talk down to trustees. Again, their role is to be good stewards over the money that is at a church, so that they have to be aware of how they're spending it. They just don't want to just flippantly just throw money anywhere. But then at the same time, I understand the difficulties of trying to speak technical to non-technical people. So again, and then even sometimes you're dealing with trustees, you could tell them all the bells and whistles and how beneficial this technology would be, but then some don't even care. It's how much it's going to cost. So I just make sure I've done my research so well that if they have any questions, I mean, like 80 to 90% of their questions from a cost standpoint, I have them answered. So that helps diffuse a lot of issues when it comes up with the cost of something. Number 2 is I tie that technology into the purpose of the ministry or whatever the vision is. I'm just not bringing technology for the sake of saying, oh, hey, we need to buy this new doodad, this new gadget. No, I tie it into our purpose. So, for example, our church is about, well, not even our church, the church as a whole is about the Great Commission, about going to the highways and hedges and sharing the word of God throughout the whole world. So especially with a church, I always tie whatever tech, any type of initiative that I want to do, I always tie it back to that. So in this case, like we were talking about trustees and number 1, number 2 is I'm talking about leadership. That's normally the pastor, ministerial staff, the head president, chair of whatever ministry that this might be affected of, is I tie thoroughly into not just the features of what this tech is going to be, but what's the benefits? How are these benefits going to meet the purpose behind the ministry of whatever that is going to be working with? All right, number 3 is I share a type of conviction about this. Most of the time when from my standpoint, or maybe in yours, you're coming in with something that maybe somebody has never heard of, or the majority don't know anything about. So you need to be convicted into whatever the stance is that you're using. I mean, you really need to sell yourself on how important this new tech is. And it needs to be so strong that when you talk about it, or when people just see you, they know that that's okay. We might not understand it, but we know he understands it, and we know he believes in what he's talking about. You just can't come up to somebody and say, hey, we need to spend $5,000 on something, and you're hesitant. You need to be convicted behind whatever it is, the purpose, how you believe it's going to fulfill and tie into the purpose. You're confident in the pricing that you researched. You need to stand behind everything that you're doing and know and resonate that in you, so that when you talk about it, they may question the cost, they may question the purpose, but they should never question you, dude, in the fact that you believe in what you're actually bringing to the table and offering as a new addition that you're trying to bring. So that's what I always try and have with me for number 3. Number 4 is you have to have a drive. And let's be honest, everybody is not going to agree with all of the stuff, the cost analysis that you've done, the research that you've done, the purpose that you talked about, even your conviction. You're going to have people who are going to question it. And for me, when I say drive, it means that whether the church supports it or not, I'm still going to do it, because I'm so convicted and I know how beneficial this is going to be, that I'm going to do it. Now, I didn't say this before. I'll just tie this into one of the scenarios of what I did. Is when we were starting to live stream, we had a whole lot of people who didn't know nothing about live streaming. They've heard about it. They've seen some of the big churches do it, but they had set up some preconceived notions on what it was. So I did the research on the cost, have everything set out for how it's going to work. The pros, cons, priced, highs, low, medium, all that stuff like I mentioned. I more than showed what the purpose is, because we went to minister to other people. Outside of the missionaries that we haven't been sending out as many as we used to, and I think most churches aren't, how we can minister to other people, since our commission is the Great Commission. So I had that. Everybody knew I had drive behind what I was going to do. So with that being said, even when people were negative about it, my drive was, I believe, I'm convicted. So if I'm convicted, I need to pursue this, whether anybody believes it or not. So what I did is I invested my own time researching. I invested my own money with the cheap option. That's the reason why I came up with that, researching that as well too, is I went and invested and I bought the bare minimum that I could afford, so that I could prove this to everybody else, but more importantly, to show everybody that I believed in this. So when I brought this up to my church, they were like, no, but I went and did it anyway with my own funds, because I mean, they can't stop you from spending your own money to record a church service. And it's no different of hooking the computer to the end to live stream it. So that's what I did. And I learned the importance of live streaming, the ins and outs, the pros and cons, everything. I learned that because I knew, whether anybody else knew it or not, how important this was. So that's where drive came in from that, because you need to be able to stand behind all of this stuff, even if you have to stand by yourself. All right. And number 5 was a plan. The plan is, how is it all going to work together? How are you going to train the people? What is it going to look like when the finished product is there? What is it going to look like when it's installed? How long is it going to take? You need to have a thorough plan that when somebody says yes, you know exactly. It's not going to be another 6 to 10 weeks or months before you can implement it. You have a thorough plan to where, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to do this, we're going to put this here, we're going to put this there, and we know exactly what we're going to do. And that's what I did. So after, let me just finish out my story from the live streaming. So what ended up happening is people got wind of what I was doing with the live streaming. I selectively picked people that I trusted to review it. So I didn't make it public. I made it private. So maybe 5 or 6 people were able to watch it and give their assessment on how it's going. Is it good, bad, indifferent, something like that. And then we had a church meeting and it was brought up. The people didn't like the fact that I didn't bring it before the church and all this other stuff like that. So when I came up, I just pulled up the analytics for YouTube at the time. And I said, hey, we have a church in China, Russia, and I forgot the other country it was, that are watching this every single Sunday. So missionaries, church, when are we sending people to those locations? Silence. That's because I believed in what we were doing, and they knew, wait a minute, he's actually doing the ministry that we're all supposed to do. So with that being said, that leveled the playing field to where people were willing to do it. Now, another side benefit to this is when we actually had a revival that I was using to sample all this stuff. And our YouTube channel and our views just went through the roof based off of just the little amount of video that I was doing, maybe like a 2-minute promo for that. And ultimately, I was able to make DVDs out of the whole thing. And when I came to them with the price, they balked at the price, but I was like, hey, the DVDs I made from this revival, I've already raised half the money. So yeah, I'm telling you, this is the amount, but I already raised half and y'all didn't have to spend a dime to do it. So suffice it to say, that's why we're live streaming, because of those 5 steps that I go through when I'm trying to bring something else. Thoroughly research the cost. I tie it into the purpose of the ministry or whatever ministries that are going to be affected by it. I have conviction behind what I'm doing because I have to believe it in myself. I'm driven behind that no matter what, even if it falls on just me doing it, I would do it myself. And then number 5, have a thorough plan on how you can actually implement it, from installing it all the way to it's being maintained on a daily basis. So that's what I do. I've done that with, like I said, live streaming, video announcements. I bought all this stuff myself and started doing video announcements myself. And it took 2 years. But that same strategy is what I did for that when it comes to adding network and Wi-Fi and all that throughout the buildings of the church. Same strategy. And so that's about it. Sorry if it was kind of long-winded, but this is actually what I did for our stuff and any of the other things that we do at our church. So if you found this helpful, I appreciate a like, consider subscribing, and hit that bell the way you get notified when we come out with other videos to help modernize your media ministry. This is AJ. We will see you on the next video. Later.